The recorded history of the Arabs begins in the mid-9th century BC, which is the earliest known attestation of the Old Arabic language. Tradition holds that Arabs descend from Ishmael, the son of Abraham. The Syrian desert is the home of the first attested Arab groups, as well other Arab groups that spread in the land and existed for millennia. Before the expansion of the Rashidun Caliphate, 661, Arab referred to any of the largely nomadic or settled Arabic tribes from the Arabian Peninsula, Syrian desert, North and Lower Mesopotamia. Today, Arab refers to a variety of large numbers of people whose native regions formed the Arab world due to the spread of Arabs and the Arabic language throughout the region during the early Muslim conquests of the 7th and 8th centuries. The Arabs forged the Rashidun 632-661, Umayyad 661-750, and the Abbasid 750-1258 caliphates whose borders reached southern France in the west, China in the east, Anatolia in the east, Anatolia in the east, Anatolia in the north, and the Sudan in the south. This was one of the largest land empires in history. In the early 20th century, the First World War signaled the end of the Ottoman Empire, which had ruled much of the Arab world since conquering the Mamluk Sultanate in 1517. This resulted in the defeat and dissolution of the empire and the partition of its territories, forming the modern Arab states. Following the adoption of the Alexandria Protocol in 1944, the Arab League was founded on 22 March 1945. The Charter of the Arab League endorsed the principle of an Arab homeland whilst respecting the individual sovereignty of its member states. Arabs are first mentioned in biblical and Assyrian texts of the 9th to 5th centuries BC, where they appear inhabiting parts of present-day Syria, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Lebanon, and Iraq. Several Arab tribes and towns are identified during the Neo-Assyrian period through their onomastics and toponyms. These tribes were present throughout Mesopotamia and the Syrian desert, and in many times their presence often accompanied Aramean tribes. One such instance is the land of Lok near Turka, which had been mentioned in an inscription by Adad-nirari II, 911-891 BC, where Aramaean and Arab clans formed a confederacy when Shalmaneser III descended on Patton in 850. 8 BC, he fought a force which included 2 Arab chieftains from Transhanan, tribes of the lower Orontes Valley, Bur, Anad of Yazbuk, and Hadad Yatta of a tribe whose name is lost. In the Battle of Korkar in 853 BC, Arabs fought as part of a Damascene coalition of Syrian and Palestinian allies under Jindibu, whose homeland was located in the vicinity of Wadi Sirhan. In the reign of Tiglath-Pileser III, 744-727 BC. The Arabs are included among the Syrians integrated into the Assyrian administrative system and were reportedly located in the regions of Damascus, Tadmor, and Homs. Arabs from that period were also identified in the Bakwaka Valley, where Sargon II's Assyrian troops were attacked by Arab raiders. Tiglath-Pileser III also appointed a certain Arab Edibilu to the Sinai Peninsula jurisdiction. During his reign, Ashurbanipal 669-631 BK launched a punitive campaign against the Arabs in Horan from his base in Damascus, defeating the people of Abiate the Kordite and taking him to Assyria. Babylonian letter from before 648 BC mentions the Nabayatu, likely the predecessors of Nabataeans reportedly living in the Babylonian border region. It is possible that the city of Nabatu, which was mentioned in an inscription of Marduk Apla Idina 721-710 BC, owes its name to the tribe. During Ashurbanipal's campaigns against Arabs, most Nabayatu clans shifted to the Syrian desert, and by the 6th century had migrated to the area south of Wadi Sirhan. Ancient North Arabian texts give a clearer picture of Arabic's developmental history and emergence. Ancient North Arabian is a collection of texts from Jordan, Saudi Arabia, and Syria which not only recorded ancient forms of Arabic such as Safavidic and Hismaic, but also of pre-Arabic languages previously spoken in the Arabian Peninsula, such as Dadanitic, Hezaitic, and Taimanitic. Hazatic and Taimanitic. The texts are either written in variants or closely related sister scripts of epigraphic South Arabian Musnad. The Nabataeans were nomads who moved into territory vacated by the Edomites, Semitic speakers who settled the region centuries before them. Their early inscriptions were in Aramaic but gradually switched to their spoken Nabataean Arabic, thus producing some of the earliest clear Arabic texts. The Nabataean alphabet was adopted by Arabs to the south and evolved into modern Arabic script around the 4th century. This is attested by Safavidic inscriptions beginning in the 1st century BC, and the many Arabic personal names and Nabataean inscriptions. From about the 2nd century BC, a few inscriptions from Qaryat al-Fa reveal a dialect no longer considered Proto-Arabic, but pre-classical Arabic. 5 Syriac inscriptions mentioning Arabs have been found at Sumatar Harabasi northeast of Haran, one of which dates to the 2nd century date. Arabs are first recorded in Palmyra in the late 1st millennium BC. The soldiers of the Sheikh Zabdibal, who aided the Seleucids in the Battle of Raphia 217 BC, were described as Arabs. Zabdibal and his men were not actually identified as Palmyrines in the texts, but the name Zabdibal is a Palmyrene name, leading to the conclusion that the sheikh hailed from Palmyra. After the Battle of Edessa in 260 CE, the Roman Emperor Valerian was taken prisoner. Assuming the side of Rome, the Palmyrenes united under Odenathus and defeated the Sasanian armies in several battles, even reaching the capital city, Ctesiphon, twice. Odenathus's son Vabilathus succeeded him in 270 under the regency of his mother Zenobia, who declared the Palmyrene Empire, quickly capturing most of the Near East, including Egypt and most of Asia Minor, in 271, reaching Ancycra. Zenobia was defeated by Aurelian with the help of the Arab enemies of Zenobia, the Tanukids. The Tanukids initially appear in 196 CE as a federation of Arab tribes roaming the western banks of the Euphrates, who later made way into central and northern Syria, where they became part of the foederati of the Romans. They rebelled against Roman authority in 378 CE under their queen Mavia, who led her forces into Palestine, Arabia, and even the edges of Egypt, and also served as auxiliaries in the Roman army. South of the Taurus Range and in the region of Antioch were an Arab group ruled by a certain Aziz, who played an important role in the affairs of the last Seleucid king Antiochus Iatticus. To the east of Antioch was another Arab group that ruled in Chalcidice, represented by the Rambai, Gambarus, and Thamela, who were ruled by way of various Arab princes, including a famous Alcidamas who fought against Tigranes and in Caesar's civil war. Another Arab group or community was established in the Orontes River Valley, the Emesene Arabs, who dominated Emesa and Arisutha until the 2nd century, and were involved in the affairs of late Seleucid monarchs under their chief Semipsigeramus. In Al-Zabadani region, close by the Kalamun Mountains, was an Arab group known as the Zabadaoi who came into conflict with Alexander Jannaeus, 103-76 BCE. The Icharians, another Arab group known since Alexander the Great, inhabited the Bekaa Valley, southern Lebanon, and the Anti-Libanon and the Anti-Libanonians, and from there they expanded their territories into the Phoenician coast, Auranitis, Trachonitis, and Batanea, coming close to Damascus. In southern Palestine, the Idumeans inhabited to the west of the Dead Sea, and after the fall of the Hasmoneans became politically dominant in Palestine and southern Syria, with Rome's support for more than a century under Herod the Great. Arabs were also living in Egypt even in pre-Christian times, in the Ptolemaic nome called Arabia, in Arsinoites across the Nile, and in Thebaid. Further north, the Osroene Arabs were in possession of the city of Edessa, which they had occupied and ruled since the 2nd century BC, and which they had continued to rule until the 3rd century CE. The kingdom of Hatra was similarly ruled by an Arab dynasty since the 2nd century CE, whose rulers assumed the title Malka, often in form of King of the Arabs. The Osroene and Hatrans were part of several Arab groups or communities in Upper Mesopotamia, who also included the Praetavi of Singara, present-day Sinjar, Iraq, reported by Pliny the Elder, and the Arabs of Adiabene. This elaborate Arab presence in Upper Mesopotamia was acknowledged by the Sasanians, who called the region Arbaistan, meaning land of the Arabs. Several Arab entities flourished during Middle and Late Antiquity. These included kingdoms and confederations of tribes that dominated large swaths of land in the Arabian Peninsula, Levant, and Mesopotamia. In Central Arabia and Iraq, the Lakhmids assumed leadership from the Tanukids and established themselves as clients for the Sasanians by 300 CE, ruling from their capital city of Al-Hirah and acting as a buffer between them and the Romans, unruly nomadic Arab tribes further south. Their Ghassanid counterparts served the same purpose for the Byzantines after their settlement in Syria, likely between 250 and 300 CEE. The Ghassanids were part of an influx from Yemen due to conflict between the South Arabian kingdoms of Qataban, Himyar, and Sabaya in the 2nd and 3rd centuries CE. It's not clear whether or not Ghassanids originally spoke Arabic or a South Semitic language like the one spoken in Yemen at the time. Upon their settlement in the Levant around 300 CE, the Ghassanids also became part of the Foederati, along with several other Arab tribes in the region, including Banu Amilai and Banu Judam. Greeks and Romans referred to all the nomadic population of the desert in the Near East as Arabi. The Romans called Yemen Arabia Felix. The Romans called the vassal nomadic states within the Roman Empire Arabia Petraea, after the city of Petra, and called unconquered deserts bordering the empire to the south and east Arabia Magna. The kingdom of Kinda was yet another Arab entity in Central Arabia, established in 450 CE, as a confederation of the Ma'ad tribes ruled by the Kindites. The Kindites originally migrated from Yemen along with the Ghassanids, where they had served as nomad auxiliaries for the armies of the Sabayan and Himyarite kings, but were turned back in eastern Arabia by the Abdul Qusrabia tribe. They returned to Yemen and allied themselves with the Himyarites, who installed them as a vassal kingdom that ruled Central Arabia from Qaryat Kal the Prayat at Kal, the present day called Qaryat al-Fa. The Lakhmids contested control of the Central Arabian tribes with the Kindites, with the Lakhmids eventually destroying Kinda in 540 after the fall of their main ally Himyar. The Persian Sassanids dissolved the Lakhmid dynasty in 602, being under puppet kings, then under their direct control. They ruled much of the northern Central Arabian peninsula until they were destroyed by the Lakhmid king al-Mundhir and his son Amr. United by their new faith after the death of Muhammad in 632, the Rashidun armies launched campaigns of conquest of the surrounding territories controlled by the Sasanians and Romans, effectually establishing what is known in Islamic chronology as the Rashidun Caliphate. The state was centered at the Hijaz, in particular in Medina, from 632 until 656 CE, when Ali moved the capital to Kufa. In 661, the Rashidun Caliphate shifted into the hands of the Umayyads, who established their capital in Damascus. The Umayyads derived most of their military from Arabs of Syria and heavily sponsored poetry. They established garrison towns at Ramla, Raqqa, Basra, Kufa, Mosul, and Samarra, all of which developed into major cities. Caliph Abd al-Malik established Arabic as the Caliphate's official language in 686. This reform greatly influenced the conquered non-Arab peoples and fueled the Arabization of the region. However, the Arabs' higher status among non-Arab Muslim converts and the latter's obligation to pay heavy taxes caused resentment. Caliph Umar II strove to resolve the conflict when he came to power in 717. He rectified the disparity, demanding that all Muslims be treated as equals, but his intended reforms did not take effect, as he died after only 3 years of rule. By now, discontent with the Umayyads swept the region and an uprising occurred in which the Abbasids came to power and moved the capital to Baghdad. Umayyads expanded their empire westwards, capturing North Africa from the Byzantines. Before the Arab conquest, North Africa was conquered or settled by various people including Berbers, Punics, Vandals, and Romans. After the Abbasid Revolution, the Umayyads lost most of their territories with the exception of Iberia. Their last holding became known as the Emirate of Cordoba. It wasn't until the rule of the grandson of the founder of this new emirate that the state entered a new phase as the Caliphate of Cordoba. This new state was characterized by an expansion of trade, culture, and knowledge, and saw the construction of masterpieces of Al-Andalus architecture and the library of Al-Hakam II, which housed over 400,000 volumes. With the collapse of the Umayyad state in 1031 AD, Islamic Spain was divided into small kingdoms. The Abbasids were the descendants of Abbas ibn Abd al-Muttalib, one of the youngest uncles of Muhammad and of the same Banu Hashim clan. The Abbasids led a revolt against the Umayyads and defeated them in the Battle of the Zab, effectively ending their rule in all parts of the empire with the exception of Al-Andalus. In 762, the second Abbasid Caliph al-Mansur founded the city of Baghdad and declared it the capital of the caliphate. Unlike the Umayyads, the Abbasids had the support of non-Arab subjects. The Islamic Golden Age was inaugurated by the middle of the 8th century by the ascension of the Abbasid Caliphate, and the transfer of the Abbasid Caliphate and the transfer of the capital from Damascus to the newly founded city of Baghdad. The Abbasids were influenced by the Quranic injunctions and hadiths such as "the ink of the scholar is more holy than the blood of martyrs," stressing the value of knowledge. During this period, the Muslim world became an intellectual center for science, philosophy, medicine, and education as the Abbasids championed the cause of knowledge and established the House of Wisdom, Arabic, Bait Lakmaikmon, in Baghdad. Rival dynasties such as the Fatimids of Egypt and the Umayyads of Al-Andalus were also major intellectual centers, with cities such as Cairo and Cordoba rivaling Baghdad. The Abbasids ruled for 200 years before they lost their central control when wilayas began to fracture in the 10th century. Afterwards, in the 1190s, there was a revival of their power, which was ended by the Mongols, who conquered Baghdad in 1258 and killed the Caliph al-Mustam. Members of the Abbasid royal family escaped the massacre and resorted to Cairo, which had broken from the Abbasid rule 2 years earlier. The Mamluk generals taking the political side of the kingdom, while Abbasid caliphs were engaged in civil activities and continued patronizing science, arts, and literature. The Fatimid Caliphate was founded by Al-Mahdi Billah, a descendant of Fatima, the daughter of Muhammad, in the early 10th century. Egypt was the political, cultural, and religious center of the Fatimid Empire. The Fatimid state took shape among the Kutama Berbers in the west of the North African littoral in Algeria, in 909 conquering Raqqada, the Aghlabid capital, in 920 when the Fatimids established the Tunisian city of Mahadia as their new capital. In 948 they shifted their capital to Al-Mansuria near Kairouan in Tunisia, and in 969 they conquered Egypt and established Cairo as the capital of their caliphate. Intellectual life in Egypt during the Fatimid period achieved great progress and activity due to many scholars who lived in or came to Egypt, as well as the number of books available. Fatimid caliphs gave prominent positions to scholars in their courts, encouraged students, and established libraries in their palaces, so that scholars might expand their knowledge and reap benefits from the work of their predecessors. The Fatimids were also known for their exquisite arts. Many traces of Fatimid architecture exist in Cairo today. The most defining examples include the Al-Hakim Mosque and the Al-Azhar University. It was not until the 11th century that the Maghreb saw a large influx of ethnic Arabs. Starting with the 11th century, the Arab Bedouin Banu Hilal tribes migrated to the west. Having been sent by the Fatimids to punish the Berber Zirids for abandoning Shias, they traveled westwards. The Banu Hilal quickly defeated the Zirids and deeply weakened the neighboring Hamidids. According to some modern historians, their influx was a major factor in the Arabization of the Maghreb. Although Berbers ruled the region until the 16th century, under such powerful dynasties as the Almoravids, the Almohads, Hafsids, etc. From 1517 to 1918, much of the Arab world was under the suzerainty of the Ottoman Empire. The Ottomans defeated the Mamluk Sultanate in Cairo and ended the Abbasid Caliphate. Arabs did not feel the change of administration because the Ottomans modeled their rule after the previous Arab administration systems. In 1911, Arab intellectuals and politicians from throughout the Levant formed Al-Fatah, the Young Arab Society, a small Arab nationalist club in Paris. Its stated aim was raising the level of the Arab nation to the level of modern nations. In the first few years of its existence, Al-Fatah called for greater autonomy within a unified Ottoman state rather than Arab independence from the empire. Al-Fatah hosted the Arab Congress of 1913 in Paris, the purpose of which was to discuss desired reforms with other dissenting individuals from the Arab world. However, as the Ottoman authorities cracked down on the organization's activities and members, Al-Fatah went underground and demanded the complete independence and unity of the Arab provinces after World War I, when the Ottoman Empire was overthrown by the British Empire. Former Ottoman colonies were divided up between the British and French as League of Nations mandates. Arabs in modern times live in the Arab world, which comprises 22 countries in Middle East, North Africa, and parts of the Horn of Africa. They are all modern states and became significant as distinct political entities after the fall and defeat and dissolution of the Ottoman Empire. Arab League was founded in Cairo on 22 March 1945.